Hi class, I'm going to go through your practice now. It's been assigned Thursday, January 11th, and it's day 2 of inequalities. I'm going to remind you how to graph an inequality and how to write an inequality for each graph. This is review from Monday. Then we'll get into solving like we did in class today. Okay, so remember that as we go to the right, the numbers get larger. As we go to the left, the numbers get smaller. So when we read this, it says n is greater than or equal to -3. That's telling us that we put a bubble at -3, and we want all the numbers that are bigger or greater. So that's going to mean that we shade to the right. Now, because this says n is greater than or equal to -3, we also want to shade in or color in the dot to include -3 in our solutions. Okay, let's see. I'll do number 4. Actually, no, I'm going to do number 3. So we want all the numbers here, it says, that are less than or equal to -6. So we put a bubble at -6. That's our boundary. Now we want all the numbers less than that. So we're going to shade to the left. We also want to include -6 in our solutions, because this says b is less than or equal to, so we're going to go ahead and shade that in. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do number 5. This says 4 is greater than n, but notice our variable is on the right-hand side. So we want to flip everything so that the variable is on the left. It just makes it so much easier to graph. So I'm going to put n here, then we're going to flip that. See, the point is pointing to the end. We're going to have the point pointing to the end. So just flip that sign around and then put the 4 over here. So we just flipped everything. Okay, so this means the same thing as this, except that this is much easier to graph. So I'm going to put a bubble at 4. And we want all the numbers that are less than 4. Number less than is this way. We'll shade that in. And we do not fill in the bubble because this is n less than 4. It does not include 4. It does not say also equal to 4 or equal to 4. So this is going to stay empty. So you're going to do numbers 2, 4, and 6. And please notice that on number 6, the variable is on the right-hand side. So you're going to want to flip everything, right? Flip everything to get the variable on the left. And then graph it. Okay. Now for number 7 through 10, you're going to write the inequality. So for number 7, I can see that we want all the numbers that are less than this boundary number right here, 6. So we want all the numbers less than 6. So we write that like this. All the numbers x that are less than 6. This means all the numbers that are less than 6. That's what this graph is telling us. Now the bubble is not filled in, so we don't want to include 6. So we don't put the equal sign. We just have all the numbers less than 6. Number 9. When I look at this graph, it looks like all the numbers greater, right? All the numbers greater than 5. So all the numbers x that are greater than 5. Notice I'm putting the variables on the left. It's just easier. So all the numbers that are greater than 5 are in this graph. Now, this bubble is filled in, so that means we also want to include 5. We want all the numbers that are bigger than 5, including 5. So now you're going to try number 8 and number 9. Okay, 11 through 22 are one-step equations, and these one-step equations need to get solved, and then I asked you to graph them. So let's look at number 11. We have r minus 4 is less than negative 9. So to get r by itself, we need to add 4. So it's going to be a little tricky because the number line kind of gets in the way. So maybe I'll just rewrite it over here. So we're going to add 4 to this side and add 4 to this side to get rid of that. Bring down the inequality sign. We have negative 9 plus 4. We have more negatives than positives, so it's going to be a negative number, and the difference is 5. So it's negative 5, and that's our solution. And you can use your number line. Now, I need to graph this, so I'm going to put a bubble at negative 5, and then I want all the numbers less than that. And that's going to represent the solution set for this inequality. If we put any of these numbers in for r, this will still be true. Okay, I'm going to do the odds, you're going to try the evens. So you could try number 12 right now. It's very similar. You can try it. Now I'm going to do number 13. So pause the video at any time and try these yourself first, and then you can watch me do it. Okay? That way maybe you can practice them a little bit more. So now we have p plus 1 is greater than 3. Well, this is a plus 1, so we're going to subtract 1. Let me see if I can do it over here. Subtract the 1, that's going to cancel it. And subtract the 1 on the other side. So we get p is greater than 3 minus 1 is 2. Yeah, it's a little awkward. There's not a lot of room to work with these. All right, so I subtracted 1 from this side and subtracted 1 from this side, so we get p is greater than 2. To graph that, we put a bubble at 2. We want all the numbers p that are greater than 2. Greater than means go to the right. And we do not include 2 because it does not have an equal sign, so we do not fill in the bubble. Okay, number 15. We have negative 4x greater than or equal to negative 12. Now we're multiplying by negative 4 here, and so we need to divide by negative 4. So I'm going to just rewrite it over here. Now I'm going to divide by negative 4. Now remember what we learned today. If you divide by a negative number, we have to do something very special to the sign. We have to flip it. So we have x. Now this is greater than or equal to, so we're going to change it to less than or equal to. And then we have negative 12 divided by negative 4 over here. That's a negative divided by a negative is a positive. It's 12 divided by 4 is a positive 3. Okay, so we had to divide by a negative, so we have to flip the sign. Now we can graph this. X is less than or equal to 3. So we put a bubble at 3. And we want all the numbers that are less than that. So we shade to the left. And we also want the number that is equal to 3. So we need to fill in the dot. And now you can try number 16. Now number 17, we have x divided by negative 2. So we're going to need to multiply by a negative 2 to get rid of it. So I'm going to multiply by negative 2 to get rid of that negative 2. And multiply this side by a negative 2. Okay, so that's going to get x by itself. But we multiplied by a negative. So whenever you divide or multiply by a negative, you have to flip the sign. So since we multiplied by a negative 2 here, I'm going to flip this. It's going to become greater than or equal to. And then 2 times 3 is negative 6 because that's a negative times a positive, so that's negative. And 2 times 3 is 6. So that is our answer there. Now we're going to graph it. We want all the numbers greater than or equal to negative 6, so we put a bubble at negative 6. And we're going to shade in all the numbers greater, right? This says x is greater than. That wide side is on the left, so that means x is greater than negative 6. And it also could be equal to, so we fill in the dot. Now you try number 18. Okay, number 19 and 20. 19, we have negative 6 times m. is less than 42, so in order to solve this, we need to divide by negative 6. See if I can write really tiny. Negative 6 divided by negative 6, that's going to cancel that. Divide this side by negative 6. So we get m, but we divided by a negative number, so we have to flip that. And then 42 divided by 6 is 7, and a positive divided by a negative is a negative. So because we divided by a negative 6 to get m by itself, we had to flip the sign. Now to graph it. M is greater than negative 7. Put your bubble at negative 7, and we're going to shade everything to the right. And we're not going to fill in that bubble. Why? Why do we not fill in the dot? Because this is m is greater than. It does not say also equal to. Now you can try number 20. Okay, last one on this side, 21. We're going to need to get n by itself. It's being divided by 8. So I'm going to multiply this side by 8 to get rid of that 8. And I'm going to multiply this side by 8. So we have n over here. Now we multiplied by a positive, so we don't have to flip the sign. Remember, we only flip the sign if we're dividing by a negative or multiplying by a negative. Here we're multiplying by a positive, so we don't need to flip the sign. Leave it the same, and then you have positive 8 times negative 10. So positive times a negative is a negative, and 8 times 10 is 80. Okay, and now you try this one. Okay, you can take a break if you want, but the other side of this homework is going to be doing 2 steps. Excuse me. So we're going to continue to solve like we've been solving before with equations. We need to get x by itself, and so we're going to keep those two together until we are done. So we need to add 4 to both sides to get this 5x by itself. So we're going to add 4 to this side and add 4. That gives us 5x. Bring down the greater than or equal to symbol. Bring it down. Be very careful here. Keep everything on the right sides. We have 5x is greater than 10. Now we need to break these two up. This is 5 times x, so we'll need to divide by 5 to get rid of it. And we get x is greater than or equal to, and then 10 divided by 5 is 2. Now notice I didn't do any flipping because we didn't divide by a negative number. This is positive, so we just divided by a positive and we're fine. So now you try 24. Okay, 25. Our variable is on the right-hand side. There it is, with their best friend, negative 2. So I need to get rid of this minus 4. Right? What's the opposite of minus 4? Add 4. Add 4 to both sides. And we get negative 2x left over here. Bring down the inequality sign. And 10 plus 4 is 14. Okay? So we did our one step here. Now we need to do second step. We're going to divide here because this is negative 2 times x. We need to divide by negative 2 to get rid of it. Divide both sides by negative 2. Now notice we're dividing by a negative, so we're going to need to flip the sign. Right? We're going to need to flip the sign. So we get 14 divided by 2 is 7, but that's a negative 2, so it's negative 7. Flip the sign to make it less than. And then this is x over here. Okay? Now you know I like you to put the variable on the left. So even though this isn't wrong, I want you to change it so that everything is flipped. X is flipped. The sign changes, and we have negative 7. Okay? These two mean the same thing. We flipped everything. Okay? We flipped the sign, and then we flipped everything around to get the variable on the left. We actually kind of flipped again, but we flipped everything. Take some time, take some practice. Now you try number 26. Okay, number 27, we're going to get these. We need to get n by itself, but right now it's best friends with 6. So let's subtract 5 from both sides. And we get n over 6. That goes away. Greater than or equal to 4 minus 5. You can use your number line or use your rules. We have one more negative than we do positives. That's negative 1. Okay, so we got n over 6 is greater than or equal to negative 1. Now to get n by itself, it's being divided by 6, so we need to multiply by 6. So we're going to multiply both sides by 6. We get n is greater than or equal to negative 1 times 6. 1 times 6 is 6. Negative times a positive is a negative. Now, notice we didn't have to change anything because we never multiplied or divided by a negative. So we're all done. So you solve 28. Okay, last one. I'm going to do 29, and then these are going to be extra credit. All right, so 29, I'm going to need to get these two by themselves. So we're going to get rid of this minus 1. Let's add 1 to both sides. And we get 6 over here. Bring down that symbol, just exactly the way it is. And we have x over negative 4. Now we're almost done here. We just need to get now x by itself. So we need to separate these two. The best friends have to go away. So x is being divided by negative 4, so we're going to multiply by negative 4 on both sides. And you should be thinking, uh-oh, we're multiplying by a negative. So whenever you multiply or divide by a negative number, you must flip the sign. So we're going to flip the sign. That cancels. We get x is less than now. We have to flip that sign. And then 6 times 4 is 24. And this is positive times a negative, so that's a negative. So we get x is less than negative 24. All right, so now you're going to try 30. Okay, so then if you want some help with these, you can always ask me in class and get a little extra practice. I'll see you next time.